Donald Trump wants to take Greenland. Anyone that's not watching what's going on in the news today, Donald Trump issued a 10% tariff on many European countries: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, and Finland. And then as of June 1st, 2026, the tariff will increase to 25%. Trump issued these tariffs to put pressure on NATO and these European countries to sell Greenland.
Protests erupting in Greenland this weekend after President Trump announced new tariffs on 8 NATO allies opposing his plans to acquire the territory. That move sparking bipartisan reaction.
Large protests in Greenland and Denmark as President Trump escalates his threats to take over the semi-autonomous Danish territory. He ramped up the pressure on the Arctic island today, saying he'll impose new tariffs on Denmark and several other European countries unless a deal is reached to purchase Greenland. Today, a large crowd of people taking to the streets in Greenland, telling Trump their homeland is not for sale.
Now, Greenland is a very small colony of only 56,000 people, and people are so upset at the threat of Trump or U.S. military invasion that 5,000 people showed up protesting Donald Trump. And to give a little color on how many people that is in respect to the Danish population, that would be comparable to something like over 30 million people in the United States protesting a particular policy. Now, many in the United States are in complete opposition to Trump taken Greenland. Many in his own party have already come out and said, this isn't the way that we are supposed to do this. And one of the things that most people don't know and are not talking about is that the U.S. already has a standing agreement with Greenland. The 1951 Defensive Greenland Agreement is still in place today. And that agreement gives complete rights for military expansion to the United States at any given time. So the U.S. does not have many hurdles to jump when it comes to military expansion. They could go there right now and say, we need to increase our bases. We need to bring troops over here. We need to have aircraft carriers over here. We want to control your airspace. And it really wouldn't be a very difficult thing for the U.S. to accomplish. Also, in the 1951 Defensive Greenland Agreement, there is language that clearly states the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Denmark. This is a Danish colony. And that agreement was brokered between Denmark and United States officials. So if we were to go in and try to do a Venezuela style seizure of Greenland, it would be in violation of the treaty. Now, let's take a look at a little bit of how Donald Trump typically goes about things that he wants. This traces back to Donald Trump before he was ever even in political office. He had a similar way of conducting business even when he was just a New York builder, when he was expanding into New Jersey and wanted to build big casinos, and he needed certain people to sell their properties and have their properties bulldozed to the ground. Any property owners that didn't want to sell their land, he bullied them.
Everybody coming into Atlantic City sees that property, and it's not fair to Atlantic City and the people. They're staring at this terrible house instead of staring at beautiful fountains and beautiful other things that would be good.
You're bullying these people out because they're...
Excuse me, that's wrong. But for you to use the word bully, John, is very unfair. This is a government case. This is not Donald Trump.
Yes, it's Donald Trump. It's you and your cronies in government working together.
Heart? He doesn't have no heart, that man. The only thing he has is what he's worried about himself.
I'm a long-time researcher of the American Cosa Nostra, and I have studied the behaviors and psychology of major mafia bosses that occupied and controlled a vast majority of the commerce in New York City between 1930 and about 1980. And if you study Donald Trump, what you will see is he's very much like a mafia don. In my book, The Don, I talk exactly about what Trump's going through right now. I have a rule called take what's yours. And that rule is very much indicative of what the essence of being a powerful leader is. A leader, they're not tied down by the thoughts of the commoner, the people who go stand in line and vote, and people who stand in line pushing grocery carts or are waiting in line to pump some gas. Trump does not care whatsoever what people like that think. Rule 25, take what's yours. The boss got everything he has by theft. Everything he knows, he stole. Wealth, influence, respectability are all stolen. A boss doesn't ask, he takes. If wealth and influence are what you are looking for, you will have to steal them, for nothing valuable is free. There is no honorable pathway to being a boss. Look beyond a boss's rationalizations and you'll see that he has double-crossed his way up. On his rise, he has killed every gent, gal, and youngster that stood in his way. Crime families and domestic families were decimated. Friends were made rivals and partners were cheated out of their end. If you want something, you will have to take it. It will not be given to you. Rules will have to be broken, trust will have to be shattered, and a boss will have to be killed. This is the psychology of Donald Trump. Of all 36 of my rules, he embodies nearly every single one. He thinks like a gangster, and this is the way that he gets things done.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
One of the things that I hear a lot about is, well, we'll just buy it. We will pay them off. We will put tariffs on Greenland to put pressure on them to give us what we want. But one of the things that I have noticed about second generation rich people, or just rich people in general, but mainly rich people that never had to experience what it's like to not be rich. These kind of people place a high emphasis on money, and they believe that everything can be bought. For instance, Glenn Beck, he was talking about, well, imagine if we gave $1 million to every single person in Greenland. I would really be surprised if they would be unwilling to be the 51st United States state. But where he's wrong is that these people who put such a priority on money, or, oh my God, I have to pay a 10% tariff, they think that everybody thinks like them. But there are people who just simply think in terms of honor. When you never had no money, your dignity and your value are very important to you, and money becomes a secondary. Now, in closing, since we're on the subject of the mafia, I would like to share a little story about the world's most famous mafia don, John Gotti, and another famous mafia don, Chin Gigante. Now, Chin Gigante was the most powerful mafia boss in the country, and he was head of the commission. Now, what the commission is the 5 most powerful mafia families in the country. And they voted and regulated and controlled what all the other families in the country were doing. The thing that gets in the way of being on the commission is one family, one vote. But when you're as powerful as Chin Gigante, you have sway over other families. And John Gotti recognized that this Chin guy has more power than me, and I broke a cardinal mafia rule of killing a sitting boss without permission. So what John Gotti did is he went to the other smaller families and tried to take control. So he had the controlling vote on the commission, which would put Chin Gigante out of business, where Chin no longer can control the commission. What John Gotti could have done is just go kill Chin. Why don't you take the real fight, which is Chin? Chin Gigante had the largest family, and he was recognized as the strongest boss. But that would be a real war, an all-out war, and possibly a war that John Gotti may not have been able to win, because the Genovese family that Chin was over was the most powerful and most deadly in all of America. So what did John do? John went and picked on little families. So he provoked a war in the Colombo family, little tiny family that had no ability to go to war with anyone. He also put his own boss in the Bonanno family, another small family that could not have won a war against anyone. So with John having a vote in the Gambino family and controlling the Colombo family and controlling the Bonanno family, he can now control everything happening in the country, and he can shut down Chin. That seems very similar to what Trump's doing with Venezuela and now Greenland. He's picking the little places he can take without a fight because he's not willing to take on the real fight. Vladimir Putin. The Vladimir Putin is Chin Gigante. Rather than Donald Trump take on Vladimir Putin, what he is doing is taking over the little other small families, i.e. countries. Very easy to take Greenland, take Colombia, take Cuba, take Venezuela, trying to control various other countries to put pressure on adversaries and be able to invoke some type of control over the stronger man that you're not that confident that you can beat. So what does all of this mean? I don't think that Trump is just trying to take Greenland for the sake of, I need Greenland, even though I do think that Trump likes to put his name on new things. I think what he's doing is taking the cheap route by picking off the Colombo and the Bonanno families, because he doesn't have an answer on what to do with the West Side. He doesn't know what to do with Chin Gigante and the Genovese family, which is Russia and Vladimir Putin. What do you guys think? I'm RJ Roger. I am the author of The Don, 36 Rules of the Bosses. It's in stores now. Please support the book. Peace and love, and I'll see you next week.